Welcome to the corporate level strategy section of strategic management course. In this section, we are going to discuss the various types of corporate level strategies, which include horizontal and vertical integration, related and unrelated diversification, as well as strategic alliances and strategic outsourcing. In this session, we will focus on the different strategic choices that companies make with regard to horizontal and vertical integration. In particular, we will consider the arguments for and against horizontal and vertical integration and examines cooperative relationships such as strategic outsourcing and alliance as an alternative to horizontal and vertical integration. Successful corporate strategy adds value by enabling the company to perform one or more of the value creation functions at a lower cost or in a way that allows differentiation and brings a premium price. For a company to be successful, its corporate strategy must assist in the process of establishing a distinctive competencies at the business level. It is often claimed that a business's corporate level strategy sets the context for its business level strategy. If a corporate level strategy is to succeed, it is actually the reverse which should be the case. That is, the process of establishing a sustainable competitive advantage at the business level will define the set of appropriate corporate level strategies for the organization. One key issues that we will highlight in this session is the existence of bureaucratic diseconomies that implies a fundamental limit to the profitable pursuit of horizontal and vertical integration. As companies become more diversified or vertically integrated, top management begins to lose control, leading to the dissipation rather than the creation of value. In the next session, which is session 8, we'll cover the issues relating to the other corporate level strategies, that is vertical, that is related and unrelated diversification. So at the end of this session, we will be able to discuss how corporate level strategy can be used to strengthen a company's business model and business level strategy. We will be able to define horizontal integration and discuss the primary advantages and disadvantages associated with this corporate level strategy. We will be able to explain the difference between a company's internal value chain and the industry's value chain. And finally, we'll be able to describe why and under what conditions cooperative relationships such as strategic alliance and outsourcing may become a substitute for vertical integration. A corporate level strategy specifies actions a firm takes to gain a competitive advantage by selecting and managing a group of different businesses competing in different product markets. In general, corporate level strategy involves choices strategic managers must make in 3 areas. Number 1, they need to decide in which businesses and industries a company should compete. Number 2, selecting which value creation activities the company should perform in those businesses. And number 3, determining how the company should enter, consolidate, or exit businesses or industries to maximize long-term profitability. Now, the principal goal of corporate level strategy is to enable a company to sustain or promote its competitive advantage and profitability in its present business and in any new business or industries that it chooses to enter. Horizontal integration, vertical integration, and strategic outsourcing are three corporate level strategies that are primarily directed toward improving a company's competitive advantage and profitability in its current business or industry. Corporate level strategies drive a company's business model over time and determine which types of business and functional level strategies managers will choose to maximize long-term profitability. Strategic managers develop a business model and strategies that use their company's distinctive competencies to strive for a cost leadership position and or to differentiate its products. In order to increase profitability, a corporate level strategy should enable a company or one or more of its business divisions or units to perform value chain functional activities either at a lower cost and or in a way that results in increased differentiation. So when a company decides to expand into new industries, it must construct its business model at two levels. Number one, it must develop a business model and strategies for each business unit or division in every industry in which it competes. And secondly, it must develop a higher level multi-business model that justifies its entry into different business and industries. So let's discuss the various types of corporate level strategies. We begin our discussion with horizontal integration, which is in other way called the single industry corporate strategy. Horizontal integration is the process of acquiring or merging with industry competitors to achieve the competitive advantage that arises from a large scale or large scope of operations. Now, an acquisition occurs when one company uses its capital resources such as stock, debt, or cash to purchase another company. And merger is an agreement between two companies to pool their resources and operations and join together to better compete in a business or industry. Now, many companies actually wish to stay within one industry because it allows the company to focus all of its managerial, financial, technological, and functional resources and capabilities on competing successfully in one area. The second reason that company wants to stay within a single industry is that a company sticks to the knitting, which means that it stays focused on what it knows and does best. Even when a company stays in one industry, sustaining a successful business model over time can be difficult because of two reasons. Number one is changing conditions in the environment and because of changing customer needs. Technology can change, customer needs and preference can change. So, what are the benefits of horizontal integration? Horizontal integration can lower a company's cost structure because it creates increasing economies of scale. Achieving economies of scale is especially important in industries that have high fixed cost structure. A company can also lower its cost structure when horizontal integration allows it to reduce the duplication of resources between two companies. Secondly, horizontal integration may increase profitability when it increases product differentiation. For example, by increasing the flow of innovative new products that a company's sales force can sell to customers at a premium price. Horizontal integration may also increase differentiation when it allows a company to combine the product lines of merged companies so that it can offer customers a wider range of products that can be bundled together. Product bundling involves offering customers the opportunity to purchase a range of products at a single combined price. Another way to increase product differentiation is through cross-selling, which is when a company takes advantage of or leverages its established relationship with customers by way of acquiring additional product lines or categories that it can sell it to them. In this way, a company increases differentiation because it can provide a total solution and satisfy all of a customer's specific needs. Thirdly, for firms that have resources or capabilities that could be valuably deployed across multiple market segments or geographies, horizontal integration may offer opportunities to become more profitable. And then next one is horizontal integration can help to reduce rivalry in two ways. Number one, by acquiring or merging with a competitor, horizontal integration helps to eliminate excess capacity in an industry which triggers price wars. And number two, by reducing the number of competitors in an industry, horizontal integration often makes it easier to implement tacit price coordination. This is a coordination reached without communication between rivals. So when the rival companies set prices, they do a little bit of tacit price coordination. They cannot do a formal coordination to set the price because it is illegal. But tacit price coordination is actually legal. And finally, some companies use horizontal integration because it allows them to obtain bargaining power over suppliers or buyers and increase their profitability at the expenses of suppliers or buyers. Because you are buying your competitors and you may become number one or one of the major suppliers in the industry. So customers and suppliers do not have a choice to go to other companies to buy the product or to sell the product. So by consolidating the industry through horizontal integration, a company becomes a much larger buyer of suppliers' products and uses this leverage to bargain down the price it pays for its inputs, thereby lowering its cost structure. And when a company has greater ability to raise prices to buyers or bargain down the price paid for inputs, it has obtained increased market power. While horizontal integration can strengthen a company's business model in several ways, as we have just discussed, but there are problems, limitations, and dangers associated with pursuing this strategy. Implementing a horizontal integration strategy is not an easy task for managers, and there are several reasons for that. Number one, problems associated with merging very different company culture. If a company buys and or merge with another company that has or that practices very different kind of cultural norms, then they or corporate cultural values, then it would be difficult or it would be challenging for managers to integrate these two companies culture into one. Second is high management turnover in the acquired company when the acquisition is a hostile one. If the acquisition is a friendly one, then it is highly less likely that company loses its management talents. But if it is a hostile company, then the acquiring company managers may feel that this is not their company anymore and they can leave the organization. And third one, there is a tendency of managers to overestimate the potential benefits from a merger or acquisition and underestimate the problem involved in merging their operations. This happens mostly among managers who have developed some kind of overconfidence over the years after managing at the top level. So that is why, because of their overconfidence, they sometimes overestimate the benefits and underestimate the problems. And sometimes it may look like that the company has paid too much money to buy a problem company. In addition to that, when a company uses horizontal integration to become the dominant industry competitor and they further wish to grow, then the company comes into conflict with the government agencies who are responsible for enforcing antitrust laws. Antitrust authorities are concerned about the potential for abuse of market power because more competition is generally better for consumers than less competition. So they basically do not allow a company to be the dominant industry competitor, because ultimately then the citizens will be the sufferer. So the next one is vertical integration, which is entering new industries to strengthen the core business model. A company pursuing a strategy of vertical integration expands its operation either backward into the industry that produces inputs for the company's products, which is called backward vertical integration, or they move forward into an industry that uses, distributes or sells the company's products. This is called forward integration. And there are four main stages in a typical raw material to consumer value added chain, starting with raw materials, component parts, manufacturing, final assembly and retail. For a company based in this assembly stage, backward integration involves moving into component parts manufacturing and raw materials production, and forward integration involves movement into distribution and sales. That means it could be the retail sales. At each stage in the chain, value is added to the product, meaning that a company at one stage takes the product produced in the previous stage and transforms it in some way so that it is worth more to a company at the next stage in the value chain. So ultimately to the customer. It is important to note that each stage of the value added chain is a separate industry in here. In which many different companies are competing. For example, the raw materials producers and components parts manufacturers, that could be separate industries. Raw material producers could be in one industry, component parts manufacturing would be another industry, and final assembly would be another industry, and retail could be in another industry. If we take the case of ice cream producer, It means if the ice cream producer is at the final assembly and ice cream production needs ice, sugar and milk mostly, and if the ice cream producer now moves backward to produce these sugar and grow milk and ice, then it would be called a backward vertical integration. But if then they also sell their product through their own outlet, that means they are now moving into the distribution, and that would be called forward vertical integration. Vertical integration increases product differentiation, reduces company's cost, or reduces industry competition when it, number one, facilitates investment in efficiency enhancing specialized assets, number two, when it protects product quality, and number three, when it results in improved scheduling. Let's discuss these issues a little bit further. Number one, facilitating investment in specialized asset. What is a specialized asset? It is an asset that is designed to perform a specific task and whose value is significantly reduced in its next best use. The asset may be a piece of equipment that has a firm specific use, or it could be the know-how or skills that a company or employees have acquired through training and experience over time. Companies invest in specialized assets because these assets allow them to lower the cost structure or to better differentiate their products. Now, when one company buys supplies or raw materials from other suppliers, it often requires that suppliers invest in specialized assets to produce the inputs that this specific company needs. Suppose an automobile company has developed a unique energy-saving electrical engine system that will dramatically increase fuel efficiency and differentiate its cars from those of its rivals. This gives the automobile company, a major competitive advantage. Now the automobile company must decide whether it should be making the system in-house through vertical integration, or it should contract with a supplier to make the new engine system. The supplier might feel that once it has made the investment in specialized asset, which may be a huge amount of investment, maybe so for example $1 billion, then this supplier will become too dependent on the automobile company for its business, because it is the only possible customer for this electrical engine made by this supplier. So the problem is a lack of trust. Neither the automobile company nor the supplier can trust the other to operate fairly in this situation. The lack of trust arises from the risk of hold-up, that is, being taken advantage of by a trading partner after the investment in specialized asset has been made. Now often such firms practice tapered integration, whereby a firm makes some of the input and buys some of the input. Purchasing part of most of its needs for a given input from suppliers enables the firm to tap the advantage of the market, that is, being able to choose from more suppliers that are competing to improve quality or lower the cost of the product. At the same time, meeting some of its needs for the input through internal production improves the firm's bargaining power by reducing the likelihood of hold-up by a supplier. So, if the suppliers also doesn't trust, then the company say that is risk of hold up, then the company can make some of the product in-house and some of the product that they can buy from other suppliers from the market at a competitive price, because then there will be more competitors in there. So this is tapered integration. Now the second point was enhancing product quality. By entering industries at other stages of the value added chain, a company can often enhance the quality of the products in its core business and strengthen its differentiation advantage. By enhancing product quality, vertical integration enables a company to become a differentiated player in its core business, which leads to more pricing options. Because quality improvement is a basis for differentiation strategy, is one of the basis for differentiation strategy. The third point is the improved scheduling, and sometimes important strategic advantage can be obtained when vertical integration makes it quicker, easier and more cost effective to plan, coordinate and schedule the transfer of a product such as raw materials or component parts between adjacent stages of the value added chain. This can be particularly important in companies trying to realize the benefits of just-in-time inventory system. If a company depends heavily on outside supplier for getting their supplies, then it is often a case, or occasionally I would rather say, a case that the suppliers may not be able to send the supplies on time due to many reasons, including strike in their factory, including some machine breakdown. So in that cases, scheduling the production and the product and raw materials and component parts, it would be difficult if we are uncertain about the timing of supplies from the supply side. So in this kind of cases, vertical integration actually helps the company to make sure that they get the supplies when they are needing it. That means just-in-time inventory system. While vertical integration can often be used to strengthen a company's business model and increase its profitability, however, vertical integration has some disadvantages. Sometimes these disadvantages are so great that vertical integration, instead of increasing profitability, may actually reduce it. In which case, a company engages in vertical disintegration and exits industries adjacent to its core industry. So let's focus on these disadvantages. First of all, vertical integration can increase company's cost structure, especially when a company makes mistakes such as continuing to purchase inputs from company-owned suppliers when the low-cost external sources of supply is available. Company-owned or in-house suppliers might have high operating cost relative to independent external suppliers because they know, that means the vertically integrated company knows that it can always sell their output to other parts of the company. So they do not have any incentive to look for new ways to minimize operating costs or increase component quality. In-house suppliers simply pass on cost increase to the division of the divisions in the form of higher transfer prices. That is, the price one division of a company charges other division for its products or services. Another major reason why vertical integration often fails to boost profitability is that bureaucratic cost of vertical integration may exceed benefits created by this strategy. Bureaucratic costs are costs associated with solving the transaction difficulties that arise between a company's business units. That means the core business and the vertically integrated business, and between business units and also the company's headquarters. So another disadvantage that arises in vertical integration is linked with the technological change. So when technology is changing fast, vertical integration may lock a company into an old and inefficient technology and prevent it from changing to a new technology that would strengthen company's business model. Vertical integration can pose a serious disadvantage when it prevents a company from adopting new technology or changing its suppliers or its distribution system to match the requirement of changing technology. Another disadvantage arises from demand unpredictability. In vertical integration can be risky when demand is unpredictable because it is hard to manage the volume or flow of products along the value added chain. If I take an example of this ice cream company, so if ice cream companies or ice cream products have a seasonal demand fluctuation, so in the summertime we have more demand for ice cream, in the winter time is less demand for ice cream. So if a company owns another vertically integrated company to supply them the ice, what this vertically integrated company is going to do in the winter time, because there will be less demand of ice, but since it is a company owned, it is a company owned by the the parent company, so it has a cost that the company has to bear, the administrative cost, the salary of the fixed employees or regular employees, and then the building cost and machineries depreciation. All these things are also going to increase company's cost. Now the final disadvantages is basically the mismatches in optimal scale. Even in situations where it appears that vertical integration might improve product quality or provide other benefits, it can be inefficient to vertically integrate if the new business has a higher minimum efficient scale than could be reasonably utilized by the current business. So in that kind of case, so if we start the ice factory in here, their capacity is say 200 metric ton a day, but we just need 60 metric ton a day. So the rest of the time, unless this vertically integrated company go for taper integration, that means they make 200 tons, gives or supplies 60 tons to their in-house companies and sells the remaining 140 metric tons to the outside market, then it is okay. But most of the time we see that unless it is a taper integration or in case of full integrated company, management doesn't have that kind of incentive. So we see that vertically integrated company has more capacity that we do not need to use. So that is also another cost of vertical integration. So comparing the benefits and disadvantages of vertical integration, we see that there are some alternatives to vertical integration strategy, mostly in the form of cooperative relationships. Companies have found that they can realize the gains associated with vertical integration without having to bear the associated bureaucratic cost if they enter into long-term cooperative relationship with companies in industries along the value-added chain. This is also known as quasi-integration. So there could be a short-term contract and competitive bidding strategy where many companies use this strategy that lasts for a year or less to establish the price and condition under which they will purchase raw materials or components from independent suppliers or sell their final products to distributors or retailers. A classic example is the car maker that uses a competitive bidding strategy in which independent component suppliers compete to be chosen to supply a particular component, such as brakes, at the lowest price. Now, short-term contracting does not result in specialized assets investment that are required to realize differentiation and cost advantage because it signals a lack of long-term commitment to its suppliers. So there is a lack of trust in here. This is not a problem when there is a minimal need for cooperation and specialized assets are not required to improve scheduling. And number one, and also enhancing product quality or reducing cost. In this case, competitive bidding may be optimal. However, when there is a need for cooperation, something that is becoming increasingly significant today, and the use of short-term contracts and competitive bidding can be a serious drawback. If more cooperation is needed, it is better that we go for a long-term kind of contract in the form of strategic alliance or other long-term contract. Unlike short-term contracts, strategic alliance between buyers and suppliers are long-term cooperative relationship. Here, both companies agree to make specialized investment and work jointly to find ways to lower cost or increase product quality so that they both gain from their relationship. A strategic alliance becomes a substitute for vertical integration because it creates a relatively stable long-term partnership that allows both companies to obtain the same kind of benefits that results from vertical integration. However, it also avoids the problems such as the high bureaucratic cost that arise from managerial inefficiencies that results when a company owns its own suppliers, such as those that arise because of the lack of incentives or when a company becomes locked into an old technology, even when the technology is rapidly changing. There are several strategies companies can adopt to promote the success of a long-term cooperative relationship and lessen the chance that one company will break its commitment or agreement and cheat the other. One strategy is for the company that makes the specialized investment to demand a hostage from its partners. Another is to establish a credible commitment from both companies that will result in a trusting long-term relationship. So let's discuss these points or these strategies. Number one is hostage taking. Hostage taking is essentially a means of guaranteeing that each partner will keep its sides of the bargain. Both the companies should be mutually dependent, and there should be a win-win situation for both the parties. Each company should possess a kind of power to discipline its partners if the need arises. Second is credible commitment. Excuse me. A credible commitment is a believable commitment or promise or pledge to support the development of a long-term relationship between companies. For example, by publicly committing itself to a long-term contract and putting some money into the chip development process, IBM made a credible commitment that it would continue to purchase chips from GE. When a company violates a credible commitment with its partners, the results can be dramatic. Similarly, a company can organize a press conference, signing the documents or the agreement, publish it, make sure that it is legally enactable. At the same time, the one company can invest or share the investment cost in specialized assets of the supplier or the other company. Third one is maintaining market discipline. Every contract, including the long-term contracts, should be periodically renegotiated, usually every 3 to 5 years, so the supplier knows that if it fails to live up to its commitments, its partners may refuse to renew the contract. So this is one yardstick. And the second one is many companies that form long-term relationship with supplier should use a parallel sourcing policy and enter into a long-term contract with at least 2 suppliers for the same component. This is important especially when there is a risk of getting the supply on time, or if there is a risk that the other partner or the contract or the supplier raise the price suddenly without giving any notice, or there is a strike or some other kind of issues for which the company is not getting the supply from the suppliers. It is better to form the supply relationship with few other suppliers. That is called parallel sourcing policy. While we have concluded that vertical integration and strategic alliances are alternative ways of managing the value chain across industries to strengthen a company's core business model, strategic outsourcing, whereas, is the decision to allow one or more of a company's value chain activities or functions to be performed by independent specialized companies that focus all of their skills and knowledge on just one kind of activity. For example, a company can outsource its production function to companies that are expert in producing or assembling things. When a company chooses to outsource a value chain activity, it is choosing to focus on fewer value creation activities to strengthen its business model. There has been a clear move among companies to outsource activities that managers regard as being non-core or non-strategic. It means they are not a source of company's distinctive competencies and competitive advantage. The vast majority of companies outsource manufacturing or some other value chain activity to domestic or overseas companies today. These products are made under contract at low cost in global locations by contract manufacturers that specialize in low cost assembly, and many problems can arise as a result. Companies engage in strategic outsourcing to strengthen their business model and increase their profitability. The process of strategic outsourcing typically begins with strategic managers identifying the value chain activities that form the basis of company's competitive advantage. These are obviously kept within the company to protect them from competitors. Managers then systematically review the non-core functions to assess whether independent companies that specialize in those activities can perform them more effectively and efficiently. Because these companies specialize in particular activity, they can perform them in ways that lower cost or improve differentiation. The term virtual corporation has been coined to describe companies that have pursued extensive strategic outsourcing. So why companies actually or what companies benefit from outsourcing? Strategic outsourcing has several advantages. It can help a company to lower its cost structure, increase product differentiation, and focus on distinctive competencies that are vital to its long-term competitive advantage and profitability. So the benefits are: number one, lower cost structure. Outsourcing will reduce cost when the price that must be paid to a specialized company to perform a particular value chain activity is less than what it would cost the company to internally perform that activities in-house. Second is enhanced differentiation. A company may also be able to differentiate its final products better by outsourcing certain non-core activity to specialists. For this to occur, the quality of the activity performed by specialists must be greater than if the same activity was performed by the company. And number three, focus on the core business. A final advantage of strategic outsourcing is that it allows managers to focus their energies and their company's resources on performing those core activities that have the most potential to create value and competitive advantage. There are several risks associated with outsourcing. These include: number one, risk of hold-up. In the context of outsourcing, hold-up refers to the risk that a company will become too dependent upon a specialist provider of an outsourced activity, and that the specialist will use this fact to raise prices beyond some previously agreed upon rate. As with strategic alliances, the risk of hold-up can be reduced by outsourcing to several suppliers and pursuing a parallel sourcing policy. Next, risk of increased competition. As firms employ contract manufacturers for production, they help to build an industry-wide resource that lowers the barriers to entry in that industry. In industries that have efficient and high quality contract manufacturers, Large firms may find that their size no longer affords them protection against competitive pressures arising from these efficient and high quality contract manufacturers. Number 3, the risk of loss of information and forfeited learning opportunities. A company that is not careful can lose important competitive information when it outsources an activity. A firm that manufactures its own products can gain knowledge about how to improve their design in order to lower the cost of manufacturing or produce more reliable products. Thus, a firm that forfeits the development of manufacturing knowledge could unintentionally forfeit opportunities for improving its capabilities in product design. So, what a company should do? Companies should use outsourcing only for activities where they cannot create value. If any value creating activity has strategic importance for the company, that means it is a source of competitive advantage or distinctive competencies for that company, that activity should not be outsourced. Second, companies should only outsource where they are at a substantial disadvantage compared to competitors. With that, we finish this session. Thank you.